on the legumes and the whole grains,
Hmm.
as far as I can tell, there's kind of arguments for both sides. The paleo argument seems to be that these are bad for you. They can cause. They've got kind of anti-immune components to them that can
Hmm.
actually. I don't know if it's actually scientifically proven, but there are plenty of things online that say they could be seen to cause things like I don't know, things like arthritis and even cancer. But there's another argument which is that grains are actually good for you because they bolster good bacteria and they help your digestion.
Hmm.
Now, presumably, you've you've seen both of those arguments before. You're kind of nodding as I'm saying this. So, how how serious is the kind of the grains argument and the legume argument as well? If we can look at that afterwards, on the paleo diet. Like I can understand if it's processed grains, right? But if it's whole grains, is that something that's still really bad? And like legume as well, you can have different types. So is it mainly the processed stuff that we don't like, or is it any grains and any legume?
Well, I have a couple of extra arguments, which is that we evolved 2 million years ago,
Right.
and really we haven't changed. Our DNA has not changed virtually at all.
Okay.
Grains only really developed 10,000 years ago. And so grains are very, very new. They're sort of like the blink of an eye in terms of evolution uh, stage. So there's an argument to say that we have not evolved to handle grains. And Dr. William Davis, in his book Wheat Belly, also makes the point that the grains that we eat today are so grains even 10,000 years ago that the problem is magnified. So there's those two issues against grains as well, but it's how does it affect you? And that's what dropping wheat, grains, legumes from your diet can show you.
Right.
So if you drop them, so I sort of, I noticed that I can put on weight, I'll put on 8 pounds in a week if I eat wheat. And I feel sluggish and I crave bread or I crave sugar when I'm eating bread. And so I just stop. And when I stop doing that, I don't have the digestive issues. I don't have the pain that I personally tend to get. And I just feel better. And it's the same with legumes, with beans, even with, I just don't feel good. And I feel better when I don't eat them. And that I say to people is, there are these guidelines. You can read books for and against. You can sort of try all sorts of things, but ultimately the test is what happens to your body when you eat them and when you don't eat them.
Yeah.
And I always say, before you reach for your medicine, change your diet and see what happens there first, and see how you personally respond. And for me, there's no question that wheat particularly, I don't eat any grains at all, and I haven't found it, that hasn't been difficult for me to drop the wheat, although it's difficult in England because there's so much of it everywhere.
Yeah.
So I just drop it.
Okay.
Less pain, I lose the weight, and I don't have the cravings because of the blood sugar. There's the blood sugar issue, which says the carbohydrates will affect your blood sugar, cause your blood insulin to be excreted, so that your blood sugar comes in range, and then you get hungry again, so you're craving. You're in this constant carbohydrate cycle, and your blood sugar is going up and down and up and down and up and down, and eventually we all know that leads to diabetes. So we just keep it steady, then we will avoid that.
Okay.
And I have, my husband has a coworker who was diabetic. He was type 2 diabetic, and he sort of turned him on to paleo. And the guy's lost 100 pounds since February and has come off all his medication.
Right.
I mean, it's just extraordinary. So, and there's so many success stories like that it just makes total sense to me.
Yeah. So what you're saying then is if I was really into grains, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if I just gave up grains, I would be able to tell. I'd be able to feel it and feel a difference.
I would expect so.
Right.
You would probably lose weight if you have any issues that are grains related, digestive issues, or a lot of people have allergies. I personally start wheezing if I have bread,
Okay.
and often we get so conditioned, we're so accustomed to living with these illnesses and ailments that we do, when we've always lived like that, we can't some of the stuff that's going on until we drop those things from our diet. And
what if someone doesn't have issues in terms of their with their digestion or whatever? Like you've said a couple of times, if someone would could change their diet and then stop taking their medication. What if we have someone who doesn't have any medication, is relatively healthy?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those people exist, right? Who aren't on a paleo diet, aren't even on a 4-hour body diet. They're just eating and drinking. I don't know what. They probably have a relatively healthy diet in the first place, right? But it's somebody who doesn't have any issues. Are they going to see a difference if they stop eating grains and like whole grain bread and things like that?
Probably, because probably they would find that they're clearer, that they're not eating as much. Like you said, when you go on these diets, you lose the taste for so many things that previously you had. You probably would find that you're not eating as much, and you might find, as I did, that you had got some ailments that you just hadn't simply realized until they went away.
Right.
It's sort of counterintuitive. If you're relatively healthy, if you're I was relatively healthy.
I think I am.
I wasn't overweight. I wasn't overweight. I didn't need to lose 100 pounds, and I wasn't a diabetic. But I just kind of felt like I just don't feel as good as I think I should feel.
Yeah.
And I stopped it. I stopped eating that stuff. And now when I do, if I have some sort of celebration food and I go out and I eat, dessert and bread and in restaurants or something, I can come home and I can tell my brain does not work as well. I mean, I can still function, but I want to sit on the couch and just sort of TV. I don't want to be sort of moving around. You'll find that you don't have the post-lunch slump in the afternoon. You should be able to go from the beginning of the day to the end of the day with, endless energy. Yeah. And you're not sort of looking pick me up that so many people, and I certainly used to have.